bless you, Jared Dudley. I don't know what it is. Dudes love throwing my name and stuff, but God bless you, Jared.
Stephen A., do you believe Dudley?
No, I'm at all. He's a really good guy, really smart guy, and I'm not trying to throw any shade on him, but I don't believe him, and I say that respectfully because I definitely believe it was more about Kawhi Leonard. Let me say this. Paul George is averaging 27 against the Lakers. He did average 26 last year against the Lakers. Paul George is an all-star caliber player. He is not a scrub. And he happens to be one of the nicest people you'd ever meet, to be quite honest with you. Incredibly respectful. He's a professional. He's a good dude. He might have had differences with certain players like a Montrezl Harrell or somebody, but Paul George is a good guy. Let's be very, very clear about that. He's not one of those guys that's an a-hole and he motivates you to really, really come at him night and day because of your disdain for him. You run across the NBA, you don't find guys that feel that way about Paul George. Now, they might feel something along the lines like Kawhi's a champion and you're not, but it's not like they look at Paul George like he's some scrub and you know what, let's go and give it to him because it ain't gonna be that easy. The brother can play. But the reason I bring up Kawhi is because, once again, we've got yet another person that's trying to downplay or shove aside the significance of what Kawhi Leonard did coming to Los Angeles. And I'm sick and tired of it. Kawhi Leonard is a superstar caliber player, one of the top 5 players in the game, incredibly respected and feared to some degree because he's such an elite defender when he really focuses on it. We know what Kawhi Leonard could do. Let's focus on what he did. He won the championship in Toronto, signed on with New Balance, even before that, actually. Come to L.A., got the commercial for New Balance, driving the convertible down the highway in L.A., and the king's crown dangling from his mirror and all of this other stuff. He was coming for LeBron because LeBron wasn't a champion. He was. And he was like, I'm the reigning defending champion now, and I'm coming to your town. And by the way, I'm not coming to you. I'm coming to come at you, as Max Kellerman has so astutely highlighted in the past. That's what Kawhi Leonard was doing. And if you LeBron James, you knew everybody and their mama was waiting for that confrontation. Yes, Lakers, Clippers. Yes, Paul George with Kawhi against Anthony Davis and LeBron. But they were waiting for LeBron versus Kawhi. And anybody who tries to deny that, I ain't even trying to listen to them. I'm not even trying to listen to them because everybody was waiting for that confrontation. And that's why we still ticked off that the Clippers didn't come through.
You are so passionate. You talk about this with such fervor about Kawhi. It's such a pet issue of yours that it is clouding your judgment here. If you want to make this about Kawhi, go ahead. He did everything you said he did. He went to go at LeBron, and he failed to even get to that game, even to the Western Conference Finals. And he failed because he choked in Game 7 and choked in the second half and choked in the fourth quarter. And you know I thought he was going to win the whole thing. But up until then, Kawhi was magnificent in the playoffs, as he had been the year before. Kawhi plays the regular season at near MVP levels, right? Like maybe a little quarter step behind the very best, and then when it matters most, he's as good as anybody, or better. Paul George is not an MVP caliber player, and we all know it. He's not quite at that level. He's not a 5-star, he's a 4.5-star player. And those guys, if they're going to be Robin to Kawhi's Batman, if a guy like that is going to be the main support to a superstar, or if, better yet, if he's supposed to be the other superstar, and he's not quite an MVP, if anything, he's got to elevate when it matters most, or at least stay his same self. Stephen A., Paul George, a really nice guy. I've interviewed him a couple times, and I know people who know him. Really nice guy, a good dude. But we keep hearing the same thing. Was it resentment toward Kawhi for the special treatment? What keeps coming back to me is what people resented was Paul George was given that same special treatment, and they felt he in particular did not have that status. And what we're hearing from Jared Dudley now is echoes of that. Stephen A., maybe even if Paul George did elevate, they don't get it done, but at least they got a shot. last year was not on Kawhi. He deserves the attention, you're right, because he did aim at the king, and he missed. But Paul George didn't hold his end of the bargain. Kawhi, throughout the playoffs, was great. Paul George wasn't, and people noticed it.
Paul George wasn't showing up in the playoffs in the first round. By the second round against Denver, he had some pretty damn good games himself. That's number one. Number two, It wasn't on him to show up as much as it was on Kawhi. That's number two. Number three, again, when I bring up Kawhi Leonard, let me put it to you this way in a better context that I've never put it in before, Max Kellerman. If the Lakers get bounced out by Portland, if they get bounced out by whomever, and there's someone else waiting for the Clippers, if the Clippers were to advance to the conference finals, would we have cared as much? Hell no. It mattered because the Lakers and the Clippers appeared to be on a collision course, and the Clippers wet the bed and didn't hold up their end of the bargain. And with that being Kawhi Leonard at the forefront of that, I don't want to hear anything about Paul George. Looking at Kawhi.
All right, let's leave it there. Guys,
Harden, Durant, and Kyrie put on. If they played like that, and I'm not saying they would against the Lakers, because that's my question mark. But if they played like that, nobody can beat them. Nobody can beat them if they can play offense like that, because I think their defense just going to get better with familiarity. Not much better, but I think it'll get a little better in the second half. They played some good defense, and I saw Kawhi, Max, trying to push Harden down. We forget how strong James Harden is. Couldn't push him and back him down in the fourth quarter the way Kawhi tried to. And Kawhi is obviously a pretty strong guy. I just think that Kyrie is an absolute showstopper. He's box office. Kevin Durant, to me, let me tell you something. He's a superstar. He's a top 2 player on the planet. I think number one, when he gets completely healthy and he's playing more defense, I think he's number one. And James Harden, the unselfishness. He's reminding us he was a point guard in OKC. He will distribute the basketball. He's not selfish. He will give you the ball. Those things taken into consideration, I got to tell you something. I don't think anybody can stop the Nets offensively. I really, really don't.
Nets cannot beat the Lakers in a best-of-7 as currently constructed, as presently constituted. And last night's game included, Stephen A., even if we're only looking at that game. Now, if you want to say, could the Nets win a tournament? Yeah. If it was one and done, Nets could beat anyone on any given night. You can say that about a lot of NBA teams, but especially the Nets, because they're already, they're going to be the best offensive team of all time. They're going, and since the Harden trade, that's statistically what they already are. They haven't even figured it out yet. And Kevin Durant, what's impressed me the most, coming off an Achilles, is he chose Brooklyn. Okay, I'm not going to join a 73-win super team. I hear the criticism. I'm going to forge my own path. He chose Brooklyn and was going to build the team around him. And just like that, they're a powerhouse. And off an Achilles, this man is not only playing great, amazingly efficient offensive basketball, all-time great, but he is choosing to guard the best perimeter player on the other team every single night. So my hat's off to him. And Kyrie, you mentioned, I say Kyrie's the best show in the NBA. And I totally agree. And you know I've said this for a long time. My beef with Harden is he doesn't hit clutch shots in the playoffs. He is an unselfish player. He's always done what his team has needed him to do. If it's take a million shots, he'll do that. If it's do what he's doing now, he'll do that. Be more of a playmaker and help his teammates, he'll do that. So they're outstanding offensively. They will not be able to beat the Lakers in a best-of-7 with this defensive unit. They just won't be able to do it. I don't see a way. They can score. They'll be the greatest scoring team of all time. They can't stop a nosebleed, and the Lakers can score.
Let me tell you something. The Lakers can score. The Lakers should be the favorites. We both have them as the favorites. Let's not get it confused. But what the Brooklyn Nets will force you to do is make shots, because the Lakers can clamp down on everybody else. Max, can you really see them clamping down on Brooklyn? No, you're going to have to outscore them, which means you're going to have to make sure you make shots. See, that's the difference here. And I think that they can make things tight. That's why I don't think anybody in the East is going to be able to beat them. I think Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and others, and obviously Schrader and others, they're going to be called upon to step up and make shots against Brooklyn because Brooklyn is going to make their share of shots. And in terms of Kevin Durant, this has an opportunity, as you pointed out, in fairness to you, Max, to be the greatest year of Kevin Durant's career. Because with Steve Nash being a coach, Steve Nash being a coach, he's a rookie coach. He's never coached on any level. Mike D'Antoni, we know that he don't care about defense. If you sit up there and you understand that that's the climate you created, you hone in Kyrie Irving. James Harden is playing alongside you. Kyrie Irving is being selfless. James Harden, obviously, is being that point guard and incredibly selfless. It all comes under the umbrella of Kevin Durant's leadership. Everything is on him. And if this team ends up winning the chip, he will deserve about as much credit as LeBron has earned when he got at Cleveland to the championship. You know, and the Lakers, obviously, to a lesser degree. That's what Kevin Durant is doing here. He's got a chance.
He has a chance to prove his greatness in a way he's never done before and to elevate himself so that when people talk about the greatest of all time, and LeBron's always mentioned nowadays ahead of Kobe and Magic and Bird, KD is mentioned along with those guys by everybody. He has a chance to do that. I'll caution one thing. I mentioned it earlier in the show. That was a Clippers team who had played 5 games in 7 nights. It is true that they have so many guys who can score on the Nets at such an elite level. Never mind, Joe.